Hola, ¿cómo estás? This is about chapter Motherland. Um, in this chapter, Bernard conceptualizes the call of her brother Warren, basically telling her that her grandmother passed away, and she makes a makes a funny anecdote out of it because he called her on the holidays the same time that their mother passed away, and so she was like, "Don't ever call me again on the holidays. I need to stop picking up the phone from you because you always bring bad news." But in this chapter, that's like how this is introduced to us, the concept of returning home. And Bernard does this in two metaphorical ways. One with with like the African concept of returning home or home going, through her grandmother's funeral, but then also through her going literally home to Mississippi, um, like to the roots of her family. And in this chapter, we are presented with the lens that Bernard somewhat applies in the very first chapter of when she is stabbed, and how she explains that she has been taught her entire life that the issue she would be facing, or the like when she ever to be, every time she would be hurt, would be because of the color of her skin. And the stabbing, she wasn't because of the color of her skin, but we're now directly seeing through her childhood and the history of her family why she believed she would be hurt because of the color of her skin. And this is the very first time that like we have like an actual deep dive into Bernard's house or like family itself, not just through perspective and like little tidbits in here and there and analysis. No, this is the first like analysis of her lineage itself. um I would say the reason why that this chapter is structured in this manner is to make it, um to me it's very much framed like almost like as if it's a movie. um like when you have like that Hallmark movie when someone goes home and you learn why they go home and like how they have these like emotional awakenings and this return to who they really are. That's what this chapter does for me for Bernard. um it's a way to reconceptualize Bernard and bring us back to who she is, and not just as a body to be analyzed, but a body that is carrying on generational narratives that we oftentimes forget when it comes to people. Um, and in this, I would say I was having a lot. When I was reading this chapter, I had like 3 beers. I'm gonna be honest, but like it definitely helped. I love reading literature when I'm not sober, but that's mainly because in this chapter, Bernard does a lot of the personal work that many people who just think about their family and a concept never really truly get to enjoy. Um, because many people aren't able to aren't able to trace their family or their lineage past their grandparents. Um, but the fact that Bernard is able to sleep in the bed of her mom and her sister and the mom's sisters, or she has the option of sleeping in her grandmother's bed, and talking about the house literally being built by relatives, the house that she is staying in being a mission or like a goal, and how it's still standing, and the stories and the space that it preoccupies within Mississippi itself. Um, because like the home itself is a place, but the space it takes up is within the concept of Mississippi as a safe space for Bernard and her family. But then also for Bernard, it is a place to be vulnerable and to indulge in her lineage, and family and history. Um, so yeah, and like for me personally, my family has never had like strong traditions, strong like callback to lineage and X, Y, and Z. So my life has been predicated a lot of wanting to make these traditions, wanting to create this foundation that my family and future lineage can return back to. Um, and so like that's something that like I've always struggled with, and it's always joyful for me to see someone else do that and be able to find love and success in it. um, and so like I find joy in the imagination of what my lineage could look like, and so like that's just like a funny thing to apply to myself. um, but in this chapter specifically, I really enjoyed it because Bernard dives into the concept of space a lot more. um, Not just in the context of like what it means to take up space because of one's identity, but what it means to enjoy the space that you do take up. For example, Bernard sort of introduces this in the airport when Bernard is like, I'm surrounded by white bodies as I'm in Vermont, and me as another black individual make eye contact. We have this exchange of like, yeah, we know what's going on. Bernard also conceptualizes this idea of taking up space through not just like color of skin, but through the way that we project ourselves to others. And she does this by contrasting what she's wearing in the airport along with another woman. Someone who is like very like colorful, bright, and vivid, kind of Bernard, who's wearing all black. But it's in order for Bernard to feel more safe, to feel less seen and less as a problem. And this other woman is doing it because it's just who she is. She's not afraid of judgment or predicated like assumptions. So yeah, that's like part of it. But not only that, Bernard also conceptualizes space within like the black community, and like when it came to like I forget which president, I think Jefferson. Yeah, it was Jefferson. Of how like within the black community within Mississippi, there was rivalries, there was hatred, there was malice towards depending on who you were voting for, in trying to be like one of the good ones, which is like a very derogatory and like racist means of labeling race within a certain group, of being like you're one of the good ones because you side with the proximity to whiteness. And so like the idea of being able to take up space, not only like identity but with the way that one believes and projects that to the public, was interesting. um, in many ways, I feel like that this was a way for Bernard, this chapter functioned as a method for Bernard to like reclaim space with her own self intimately, but then to also recognize it's okay for her to take up space. She doesn't have to deny it when she wants. And then I would also say like illusion wise, it's like really heavy. When it comes to like describing people within her household when she's like writing back in her college days to her friends and family, she does a lot of allusions referring back to shows, the TV and stuff like that. And I wrote it in the book, but to me this was a means of also making her life or what she was seeing palatable to others, because if they can refer back to it, then they can label it, then therefore they can try to process it. And Bernard doesn't do this intentionally, but I feel like that's one of the messages that comes like after it. Other than that, I kind of like it a lot. I think it's funny though. Near the end of the book, Bernard's chapters get longer by like 10 pages compared to the beginning ones, where it's only like 15 to 20 pages. And I think that also like the structure of the book and like conceptualizing that is like interesting. But yeah, bye.